see everybody talking about me having 7 kids. So what? Yes, we're getting 3K in EBT. I am dating the EBT plug right now in the office. He is the man in the office. I am dating him. We are currently pregnant right now. This is my 8th child. I will be having a baby boy again. That is 8 boys all together. And here's my oldest right here. That's my oldest back there. So yes, I mean, hey, 7 kids, 8 kids, it doesn't matter. We are bringing in 8 children in one household, and we are adding more to the family. So yes, I love my plug. The food stamp's not gonna stop. We are hooking people up with the 3K EBT with 4 kids or more. People with 1 child, 1K. I mean, get in the game. What y'all waiting on? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Y'all better stop letting the government play y'all, play them.
There actually is something very clearly wrong with it, and it's the fact that you're committing fraud. And the fact that people so easily admit to this online is kind of crazy, because it's so clear that you're just leeching off the government so you don't have to go to work.
I just went to go get my nails, lashes, and eyebrows done. Went to go swipe my EBT card, and she tells me they no longer accept that. So not only are they taking away junk food, sugary drinks, they are giving us all a time limit with how long we can be on EBT. Now you can't get your nails done with EBT. So I had to use cash out of my pocket for my nails and eyebrows. So now I'm $100 short on my freaking rent that I'm supposed to pay today. They need to figure something out, because this is not okay.
Genuinely though, I don't understand how this is unfair. If you've ever paid for your lashes with EBT, then the store was just committing fraud and using taxpayer funds to pay for something that is not essential and not food.
I see everybody talking about me having 7.
So look what we got here, right? Like this guy outlined, we got people who have no problem coming online, and for one, admitting like they're having kids just for the benefits, but then 2, really just admitting that they're committing fraud. Fraud is a felony, typically, in a lot of cases, especially if she's saying that this has been going on for a while, and so the amount has started to accumulate over time. Really think about that. Like, people will come on here and admit that they're doing nefarious deeds, they're doing frauds. And funny enough, a lot of times I'm hearing this talking point of, oh, what about the veterans? What about the disabled? What about the elderly? Anyone who covers this stuff always says that we're not talking about them. We're talking about this situation right here. But you'll start hearing more talking points of people trying to act like they're virtue signaling, and they're representing groups that, quite frankly, we never hear coming on here complaining. I've never seen a veteran come on here complaining about not getting their benefits. I have yet to see a disabled person come on here complaining. I have yet to see really an elderly person, unless they've been like on Section 8 for like 50 years, and now they're mad that they're not going to have that anymore. But aside from that, we don't really see that too often. We see situations like this where it's people who are defrauding clearly and who are willing to admit it. Y'all, before we get into the next clips, if you could like the video, I greatly appreciate it. Only takes a second, and it actually helps out more than you know. And also, if you could hype.
At this modest house in Garland, Texas, a line stretches
The caption says, how new SNAP restrictions impact Texas residents.
out the door and down the sidewalk.
Hi, how are you?
Every weekday, Good
And just to preface this too, we're going to be exploring how these things are changing in different states. Because although federal things can come down, right? Federal things can get signed into order. It is actually typically still up to the states, still up to the counties and the localities of whether or not they necessarily want to implement a lot of the things that come down. So just because something comes down federally, the states and the local jurisdictions actually still have quite a bit of discretion in how they adopt it.
Garland, Texas, a line stretches out the door and down the sidewalk.
Hi, how are you?
Every weekday, Good Samaritans of Garland welcomes around 300 families to its food pantry.
Food is what brings them in, because that's the first thing you think of. Hunger is what takes over your mind and your body.
Sarah Kennefick is the pantry's executive director. She says many here depend on the federal government's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, to buy groceries. But it's not enough, so they come here. In Texas, the average SNAP recipient receives $6 per day.
I mean, you just look at our economy. Things are costing more money, but the other things are not changing. The amount of money we make, our minimum wage, our SNAP benefits, all of those things are not changing.
And as of this month, SNAP benefits in the Lone Star State can no longer be used for sweetened drinks like soda or items defined as candy. Allowing states to introduce these types of bans is a pillar of Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again agenda.
We're not giving our children good food. Taxpayer dollars should not be funding these injuries to our children. And we pay for it twice. We pay for it through the SNAP program, and we pay for it later on with diabetes and obesity.
You know, I make that point all the time as far as I think it's very wrong as a parent to send your kid out here obese, right? Right when they're starting life, they're obese because that's absolutely controllable, as well as, let's just be honest, a kid is never going to say no to sweets and junk food if you give it to them. But it's your job to have that discretion and that understanding to not set them up for failure as soon as they get out here in life. There are certain people, as soon as they become adults and it's time to get started, you know, with life, they already have this monkey on their back in the form of pounds and fat that is working against them. And I really think that's negligent.
21 other states are rolling out similar restrictions, but in some places implementation has been rocky. In Texas, some of those who receive SNAP say the guidelines are confusing. For example, one SNAP benefit recipient we spoke to likes to buy energy drinks for her kids when they play sports. But with 17 added grams of sugar, that mom can no longer buy this with her SNAP benefits. The state's definition of candy has also raised some eyebrows. It includes chocolate, but also gum and yogurt-covered nuts and raisins.
I've seen reports from acquaintances that I tried to check out, my entire transaction was declined, and I had to figure out what was not covered.
So what does that mean for somebody at the checkout counter?
It is downright embarrassing. If they don't have the cash to cover, because I've been that person, what do you put back? How do you know what to put back?
Garland mom Brittany Quick visits.
As you guys know, that now that it's May, as of May of 2026, the big beautiful.
Her caption says SNAP program has now went into effect for them to work. So I guess she's talking about the guidelines as far as the work restrictions.
Bill Act that President Trump signed for the food recipients now requires people to work 80 hours a month and or volunteer those hours. If you do not qualify for those hours during the month, you are going to lose your benefits. And also, what does that mean if you go find a job for 80 hours? You're going to have to report that income, and then your SNAP benefits are going to go down, so you won't qualify as much. Now, I think that this should have been the case all along. In order to qualify for benefits, you should be working and or do some type of volunteering, any type of thing. But let me tell you this. For the parents that don't give a shit about their kids and they are not going to go get a job and they are not going to volunteer, they're going to lose their benefits, and it's going to be the kids that suffer if the kids even received those benefits anyways. You know, hopefully the parents didn't sell them off, or you know what I mean. Anyways, besides that, it's going to be cutting the SNAP benefit program by a lot, because I can almost guarantee, I would say 50% of the people that are going to be required to work or volunteer, they are not going to do it. They are not going to go volunteer 80 hours per month or work. So it's going to be a bummer for the people that do receive this program. But if you do get up and get a job and get out there and do it, it's not going to affect you because you're going to do what they're requiring. So let's see how this works out in the end, and if the children are the ones suffering later on because the parents aren't going to get off their ass and do it.
The children aren't going to suffer because now people are just going to do what they should have been doing before, which is just take initiative. They're going to be like, this isn't worth it. I'm still basically working. So I might as well just get a real job and have no restrictions and not have the government in my business, right? If a law came out today that said that jobs can't legally force you to show up on time and you could just come whenever you want, do you think people would still do the right thing and the ethical thing if the job said, well, I know you don't have to come on time, but do you think every once in a while you could try to come on time, people be like, nope. Right? Same thing. If you're not held to something and there's going to be consequences about it, then what we find is some people aren't going to do what's in their best interest if you're not going to actually force them to do it. And here's the thing, right? I think when people are looking at this, I don't think it's as simple as just, oh, they're just not willing to do it and now their kids are going to starve. I think they are doing the equation and they're saying, well, shoot, if I'm going to work, I think they're really doing the equation. Let's just say, let's see what the average amount of SNAP benefits is every month. Let's do that. So this is kind of low, but this is actually the average monthly SNAP food stamp benefit per person. The average amount that they usually get is about $180 to $200 a month. That, of course, varies by state, income, household size, right? But pretty much this is a good midpoint to go off of, right? So now let's just say $190 that they make. We're splitting the difference. $190 per month is what they receive. But now they have this work requirement. So now they still have to work 80 hours per month. So when we divide 190 divided by 80, now you're working still, and you're basically making $2.38 an hour. So what we find is that this is not meant to be pay. This is, now that people have to work, see, people would have just took the free money and not worked and just figured everything else out along the way, right? But now that they have to work, they're learning that, yes, this was supposed to be supplemental. Because now when you're working for it, you're like, well, this doesn't make any sense. So you notice when we frame it from the view of compensation, because now they have to work for it, now it's not worth it anymore. And so I think people will just do what they should have been doing in the first place now. Because even if you extrapolated that, even if we doubled that, we can just keep doing the equation. Let's say it's double, right? $400 they're receiving a month. Now that's what? Still under $5 an hour. Let's quadruple it, right? Let's say they're getting $800 a month, right? You're still making less than $10 an hour. So I think people start understanding, shoot, let me just go to work and then I don't have all these restrictions. But when they were getting free stuff, that wasn't an option.
Did you guys see the post from Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins? Now, she's alleging that 14,000 people who receive SNAP benefits, that supplemental nutritional program benefits that are intended as a safety net for those living below the poverty line. She claims that 14,000 of these individuals are driving luxury vehicles. You can see a complete list of the vehicles on the post, but they include Bentleys and Lamborghinis, Porsches, and a large amount of Teslas. And those 14,000 individuals are located in just one state. Kind of curious to see which state that is. She did not name the state. Now, this comes as no surprise to me. I have seen people abuse this system with impunity, and sadly, I've seen it up close. You know, I've seen those who can work but don't. But instead, they just kind of just lean on the system for a sustenance. And I've actually watched those who receive funds to feed their children barter those funds for everything from drugs and alcohol to concert tickets and fancy sneakers. Yes, that is true. I've watched some families do this for generation after generation after generation because this is not a new phenomenon. Let me tell you, way back in 1970, there was a fellow named Guy Drake who had a hit record called Welfare Cadillac. Now, if you've never heard the song, I encourage you to look it up. The song was all about a poor man who was just as satisfied as he could be with his poverty and his raggedy old shack. All because the government was providing him with money so that every year he could buy him a brand new Cadillac. And, you know, Mr. Drake's song was made in a kind of sensational jest, but it was rooted in a very uncomfortable truth. I suspect the post by Secretary Rawlings is exactly the same. We need to deal with it, and we need to finally put a stop to this madness.
Yeah. And this is what we talk about. Because, again, a lot of times we're trying to go for the easy things to talk about. Oh, the veterans, the disabled, whatever. People will try to act like this stuff that just hasn't been going on forever ain't real now. Like you said, it's been people bartering food stamps forever. Things that was designated for a certain thing, and they're bartering it for trivial things, like he outlined, concert tickets, the new Jordans that just came out, all type of stuff. They'll even cut it in half because they have such an excess of it. They'll say, okay, I have $200 of food stamps. Just give me $100 for it. But yet you starving. And see, now it's getting brought to light. And a lot of people have, basically like the first one we reviewed, pretty much doxed themselves. And so I think it's funny how a lot of times people will come at the people who are just addressing the clear fraud and abuse that's in their face, as opposed to addressing the people who shamelessly came on here and exposed it, and who are really the reason why things are starting to get more regulated, because it was in our face, and then we had no choice but to address it.
Hunger in America, y'all, with a rotisserie chicken. So let me get this straight. They cut some of your SNAP benefits. For some of you, you've lost up to...
Her caption is basically referring to bipartisan senators' push to add hot rotisserie chicken to SNAP options.
80% of your benefits. But they don't want you to worry. They don't want you to panic. Because the Senate just said, we got you. They are currently working on legislation to allow you to buy a hot rotisserie chicken with your SNAP benefits. Okay, so we starving, but now we starving with seasoning? And leading the charge, of course, you got old John Fetterman, the guy who pretends to care about working class people. Now, I want to ask y'all something. Is that chicken going to stretch for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for a whole week? Or is this just a $5 distraction for a $500 problem? Because this is not the solution, folks. This is a Band-Aid on a gushing wound. See, if they wanted to feed you, they would have increased your benefits. They would have increased access to these benefits. All they're trying to do is make your struggle a little more convenient. So I want to ask you, do you think that this really is about helping people out, or just helping politicians look like they care? Let's talk about it. They done...
Yeah, but look at this. Look at this. Look what you're focused on. Look what you're focused on. Did you do any professional development today? While you focusing on complaining about them adding hot rotisserie chicken? Regardless, your benefits was your benefits. If you can't get hot rotisserie chicken, you were still able to get some food. So why does all these little intricacies even really matter in the grand scheme of things? You should be focused on improving your life while at the same time not sabotaging your life and trying to get off these programs. But people are so focused on these little laws and is the rotisserie chicken going to pass, or they're cutting the junk food? Listen, anytime I've been focused on something and I'm trying to improve my life, and I'm moving fast and I'm moving with urgency, and I'm moving like, I got a fire lit under me, I'm usually not focused on what I'm eating. I just need something to keep me going. I just need something to keep me going, keep me moving. You focus on all these intricacies. You should be so busy and have so much urgency. You should just be like, shoot, whatever we got, whether it's in a can, whatever. I just need to get off this program as soon as possible. It's urgent and it's immediate and it needs to happen. But what's clear is that you're acting like you need more, but clearly you're comfortable. Because you're comfortable enough to be complaining about whether or not rotisserie chicken is going to get added to something. That is the number one indicator that lets me know there's no urgency. If you got time to worry about this little stuff, you should have much bigger problems if you're really actively trying to improve your life and trying to actually come off the program.
Hey, so remember this video? So the state of Texas is in the process of eliminating certain. So this is now going to take effect April 1st. Okay, so you are no longer in the state of Texas will be able to buy candy, candy bars, gummies, etc., sweetened soft drinks like soda, energy drinks, gum, okay, and some items with 5 grams plus added sugar or artificial sweeteners, candied fruit or chocolate coated snacks, okay, is what I'm looking at as far as in my list starting April 1st, as well as here's a list of states that's going to also start implementing this or already started implementing this as well, and other states to come in 2026 going into 20.
This is what I was talking about when I said, states have discretion of whether or not they're going to implement certain things that pass down federally. They still have discretion. So that's what she's outlining. It's not happening. Everywhere is not adopting it. And I think it's kind of obvious, probably more red states will adopt more and then more blue states won't, right?
2027 or 2028. Okay, so this has come. So I don't know, go and get all the things you need with your benefits that you have now, as far as in that. And of course we know the regular things that you can buy, and we know that you still can't buy alcohol and things like that, or hot and ready to go foods, but which is where because some places do accept EBT for hot foods. Just depends on where you are. So I know it could be hit or miss depending on the location because they may not list it as hot foods. Okay, so that's just an update that this is starting to take effect on April 1st. Okay, so just giving an update. All right, I love you guys.
Let me ask y'all a question. Since she mentioned alcohol, let me throw out a hypothetical, right? Let me ask y'all, because I made the example earlier to where if the federal government regulated and said, oh, people don't have to show up to work on time, but you still got to pay them, then most people, pretty much everybody, wouldn't show up to work on time. If you remove the consequences, right, or the barrier to do it. Let's just say hypothetically, alcohol was allowed on SNAP benefits, right? Let's just say hypothetically it slipped through and people was able to get it. Do we think that people would do the ethical and moral thing just because they have access to buy alcohol, that they would still say, I don't think it's right to use taxpaying funds to buy alcohol with this, right? Do you think that people would just do the right thing just because it's right, even if they had the ability? Because really, isn't that having character in the first place? Isn't that being a moral person with integrity in the first place? To still have the option to do bad, but choose to do right simply because it's the right thing to do. But do we think that people would still do the right thing and that they would just be like, oh no, I wouldn't. That ain't right. And then they would bring shame into the community. If they see somebody on government assistance using it for alcohol, they'd be like, you should be ashamed of yourself. Do you think that they would be shame people? Or do you think that everybody will be turning up with these food stamps and getting all the alcohol and sharing it and passing it around the neighborhood and having a good time and having cookouts? That's what will happen. And that's why things need to tighten, because this is how the cycle of abuse of certain programs, of certain services, of certain abilities, this is how out of control it can get. And this is how out of control it was getting. And this is how insane it was getting. You had people on government assistance who, we can never lose sight of what it means to be on government assistance and receiving supplemental assistance. That means that had you not received this, you all would have been starving. That's what that's supposed to mean. There was people who, it was so good, like I said, trading it for cents on the dollar, buying cupcakes for their whole class, all type of stuff, to where it's like, okay, what are we doing now? This is kind of getting out of control. People aren't using it for what they need. Technically, the moral thing would be if you have more than what you need from something that was for government assistance, to where if you give it back, then that means that that's more within the fund that can go to someone else who needs it. Isn't that technically how it should go? But we know for a fact that's not how it goes. There are some people who will be saving these balances. And I've seen and reacted to situations where people have tens of thousands of saved benefits in their account. So it should be no shock of what's happening. And again, I'm going to stay on top of it. There's a lot of new things coming down. And, it's wave 2. But y'all, we're going to leave it there for today. If you could like the video, I greatly appreciate it. Only takes a second and it actually helps out more than you know. And also, if you could hype the video, hype is a new feature that YouTube offers where it helps smaller content creators like myself. And basically, when you hype, it actually pushes us to the extent that it pushes the larger content creators. So you just press the hype button and it shows the points. And because I am a smaller channel, a smaller creator, we get more points per hype. And hype was designed for smaller creators. So that's why we get more points. And then also Patreon's link below if you want to see self-improvement content as well. But until then, I'll catch you in the next video.